Floods. The great elemental cleansing of the waters that neutralize the dust. And when the water hits the dust and becomes mud, the positive has met the negative, and we have power to have creation. Intimate absorption of dust and water into mud. There is a dilemma, a grand philosophical dilemma that we are trying to comprehend. And this dilemma that we are trying to comprehend on a collective level, where we all have our part to play to shift our way of thinking, our way of being, our beingness, and essentially our individual behaviors that form a collective consciousness can essentially play out in natural events. You're thinking, really? Yeah, well, think about the highs and the lows. Think about the pressure system. Think about nature going through droughts and then floods and then fires and natural disasters. The response. So as a collective responds with either fear or courage or acceptance or forgiveness or love or shame or joy or anger or grief or misery, the weather responds to the collective conscience. It's really interesting shit, because there is a dilemma, and I didn't just start this for no goddamn reason. Alright? And the dilemma in time and space, because we all needed time to contemplate our dilemma. And essentially time's up. Yeah. We're elevating to a new level of awareness where time and space will have a different comprehension, and nothing will ever mean the same again once time and space starts to dissipate and we're all existing in what may be deemed the eternal now moment, as the wall between ourselves and what we would deem the great spirit of life dissolves, and we recognize that we are actually one. We are life itself with a personality. Interesting, isn't it? So the grand dilemma of males and females, the grand dilemma of dominating masculinity and submissive femininity, or dominating femininity or submissive masculinity. The great internal battle of the many reasons for why we should hate ourselves. It's cute, isn't it? So the dilemma. I'm going to throw two topics that seem so simple, but they're going to essentially fuck your mind. Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, tits, fart, dirty twat. Have we noticed that they're words from the reproductive system, right? And then we think about what we call 3D, third dimensional duality, positive, negative, dark, light, trying to make things black and white, and essentially it's just shades of grey. The dark lives with the grace of the light, and the light lives with the grace of the dark. It's just the grace of the expansion of what we may call the rainbow of life. Interesting. Nonetheless, the sexual chakra, and for whatever reason they talk about sevens, but there is a chakra that sits between the navel chakra and the base chakra called the sacral chakra, or the sex chakra. And we've got a relationship with sex that we can't seem to comprehend. And, we may go into the occult and recognize that they're very clued into the sexual-based dilemma. But then there's a dogmatic approach to even what you may call the Gnostics and the Rosicrucians and they're very clear of what they do. Even the Hindus, we may call the mystical astrologers, you name it. But so here's the first thing that we want to pull out of a linchpin, and this is a real cracker. The moon is a satellite for protection from entities that want to affect this planet. Now, if you want to throw that into all of the fucking planets in our solar system and all of the suns and planets within our little galaxy and all the suns and the planets into the further parts of creation, and I know this is a cracker because it really does affect a lot of religions, but, religion is dead. The masculine and the feminine, the sun and the moon, Mother Earth. The balance between the guardian and the protector and, the caretaker, essentially. One serves, one protects, or vice versa. You could call it competition, you could call it cooperation, but we're looking at the opposite sides of the whole. So what's the issue here? So if man and wife amalgamated with I do, let's just say matrimony was a relevant part of our sexual creative expression. And in that moment, I will take care of you. I will take care of you. But then we don't take care of each other very well, and neglect actually kicks in, and we start to take a look at the bigger picture of this 3D dilemma. Performance. Isn't that a really cute word? We are sitting within a performance-based dilemma. That's the game of the ego. How am I performing or not performing? And with that performing, as I'm trying to calculate with my describer, trying to describe the indescribable, the expansive awareness as this little brain trying to, make sense of things, because it doesn't understand intuition. We're trying to describe shades of grey into black and white. But what's really going on is, through our own idiosyncrasies, is we're assessing our performance-based strengths and weaknesses. And when you look at survival, survival of the fittest, you look at the different theories, but it comes back to that one word, performance. And performance, fortunately or you could say that you earn respect and you give trust, or you earn trust and give respect, but there's a world that's chucked on its head, where the real issue is you earn respect and you give trust, instead of you earn trust and you give respect. There's your issue. There's your ego-based performance issue. And you'll recognize this with a lot of people that are really playing this ego-based problem out at the moment. They believe that you should trust them. But the problem is, you actually earn trust. Respect is a given. I respect you as a human, but you must earn your trust. So there's your little flip. And with that flip in thinking, we start to recognize that, trust is to do with security and respect is to do with significance. But with the respect, significance, attention, there are far too many individuals that believe attention equals love. And unfortunately, they become what is called the glory hog. Cast not pearls amongst swine. Swine, hog, glory, hog. It's interesting. And the glory hogs are the worst for thinking that those that aren't glory hogs are the worst glory hogs. And it's like, well, hang on, no, we're not. We're just, we've gone through our own problem, which is like, we've got trust issues. And we've got to work with those, and and where we're at is just like, where a glory hog wants all of the attention, those who may have trust problems, look, they don't actually want to be looked at. They don't want to, they just want to get on with what they do. They're not wanting any fucking attention, because we recognize that attention is not love. We recognize that love is love. But so we go through the bigger dilemma, and we start to recognize that there is a performance-based dilemma. And that dilemma is based upon glory, which is the prize, winners and losers. It's cute. So with the winners and losers, unless you're at a constant win, if you lose, you die. Well, that's ego-based thinking. Performance. But what caused it? What caused these blockages, because there are blockages that sit within the chakras, within the energy centers of the body, and subconsciously through, just through the blood of, generational traumas, if we want to call it that, it's almost become feral. And whether or not you want to think about like the concept of reincarnation, there may be something that's played out for 100 lifetimes that still hasn't been dealt with. But what hasn't been dealt with is a performance-based dilemma. And with performance, the issue that we've got is sex is supposed to be sacred, but somehow we've demonized it. Or it's been violated and abused. And through the inner assessment of being completely unconscious of what the ego has been up to, the ego is both trying to protect, a wound, because that's kind of what it was put there for in the first place, amongst other things. But in order to protect that wound, it's assessing itself between its performances to see, am I enough? Validation, being valid. But enough for what? Can my dick go into that pussy? Or can my pussy have that dick go in it? That's it. So the issue we've got is these subconscious assessments that are happening, irrelevant of how innocent or we believe that we may be, always comes back to, and with the assessment of the risks, the third dimensional dilemma is one of getting beyond performance is not love. Performance is just performance. When we assess who we are and what we do and base our sense of identity, one that we would try to feel stable about, base that upon performance, unless we become the rock star, we will never be stable. And it's a great aspiration to think that one day we'll become the best actualized version of what we could be. For some of us, it's possible. And life is quite interesting when we exist in that state. But the issue we've got, again, the reason why there is very little love in the third, what if you want to call that 3D, black and white duality, that is in an unhealthy spectrum, is attention, admiration is what is seen as love. We need to understand that is the dilemma. Admiration is not love. We can be admired. Admiration builds respect. So we can be admirable amongst one another, which allows us to respect one another, but there is a greater trust issue blocking us from finding forgiveness to allow the heart to expand and live in a state of joy. Expand, little angels. So we've gone through the reproductive system. We've gone through the fact that most of our supposed swear words are from the reproduction system, sexual reproduction mainly. And there's only so many different variations that we can give to try and get deeper levels of comprehension of linguistics through finding a new word. And it's quite intelligent when you do. You feel quite proud of yourself. But so if we can see that it's to do with sex, there is a performance-based dilemma. We became judgmental, judging the fruit from the tree of good and evil. Once we judge and we start to describe what we have judged to be either good or evil, it becomes null void. Let's come back away from that now. So, sex, performance, race cars, robots, rock stars. The archetypes of what does it mean to be your best self. Great. So we start to see there's a ceiling here. So what happens when we push this ceiling, we get through it, and we're sitting at a place that is that higher frequency, that all of a sudden what was sitting beneath there, we see the sociological makeup, the society was built on a deck of cards. So when we eject from that and recognize the system and the indoctrination and the way people think and the whole, you must believe me, and then all of a sudden it's the hero, victim, villain bullshit where it's constantly like, look at me, and then the individuals trying to validate their own sense of self-worth upon did they believe me or not, so then they're in a place of pleasure and pain, carrot and stick. Everything's carrot and stick in this performance-based dilemma until we get through the next step to recognize what's the problem. Do you remember at the beginning of this I talked about I will take care of you and you will take care of me? This took place when we destroyed intimacy. We're meant to care for each other, not compete with one another. Now, when we care for each other and we live in a healthy society that functions appropriately, of course we perform. But just comprehend this for a moment. If you knew that someone loved you and there was no need for you to perform because the love is a given, do you not think that it may force you to perform over and beyond? Because essentially you feel like you have a sense of duty once more and you're experiencing the grace of love. That's why love is so powerful. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, we will know peace. But like, what are we really talking about here? When we can get beyond competition, performance, the sexual-based dilemma of masculine and female dominating one another, which is trauma that has been blocked, gently work with ourselves to allow the blockages to be freed, get rid of this bullshit. So we're going through our own atonement. And essentially, what is an atonement? Removing all of the walls between here and out there. The shell. Going to break the shell and then dissolve and disintegrate and like essentially like, I'm one with life. See, for me, I know that I am God. I am God in the personality of Paul Thomas Humphreys. There is no doubting that. And I know my higher self and I know who I am. I know that I am one with all that is because I don't have the conditionings anymore. I've worked through them in that sense. And I don't have these performance-based dilemmas because I know my own worth. I validate my own worth. I know that I'm loved by me. And the atonement that we are trying to find within ourselves, within each individual is, how then do we break the cycle of assessing who we are in the duality of I'm enough or not enough, good, bad, right, wrong, dark, light, into I love myself, I do the best that I can, and my performances are based upon who I am growing into along my journey. How do we get rid of fake it till you make it? How do we comprehend that when you plant a seed, it grows silently? Large trees crash and make noise. Seeds grow into large trees silently. Growth. So the performance dilemma, through the assessment of the 3D, has destroyed growth because there is a constant fake it till we make it where we hinder our ability to release the stress, which allows us to start to flourish. So, you could talk about self-care, self-love, look after yourself. But like, we're going back to the original dilemma. You want to talk Adam and Eve, you want to talk whatever else, you want to talk about like describing, judging, trying to describe the indescribable, all these little things, this is just this dilemma of like this little person. It's like, so you got the little person and you got the big person. So step number one is, how would we become objective? Objective reasoning. How can we objectify ourselves in a situation, see things as a third person and start to comprehend it to be able to see the bigger picture of like what is happening and how that we can essentially help what is going on in front of us to be able to allow it to flourish too. So flourishment, the grand dilemma, flourishment. We can only perform when we flourish. Whilst ever we do not love ourselves in a state of self-loathing of this duality, that's wide and that's really short, if you want to call it that. You got the pendulum between dark and light. So we want to get this really long and we want to get that in a healthy balance. But we need to, if we want to get to the next step, which is how do I flourish, we need to get beyond the inner criticism of how am I performing. You cannot flourish whilst you're judging your performance. And essentially you go, well, how can I find that? It's like, well, maybe a coach. Damn good stuff, but then the problem is the coach has got the same damn issues. So as we walk away from a state of perfectionism, because there's no flourishment in perfectionism, and we're like, right here, how do I function in life to a fuller, to a more I'm going to say natural equilibrium. I mean, like, how do I flourish into life instead of becoming? How can I just be and allow me just being to become? We need to get good at understanding sex again and recognizing that we have been traumatized, and a lot of our depressions and anxieties, we may have been cheated on, infidelity, that's a shocking thing. We may have played up on someone else, but we've got psychological issues that have been based around sex, which has been perverted, that should be sacred, and within that, the traumas that we have are stopping us from having our creativity flow freely. There it is, so the free flow of creativity. When we become intimate with ourselves again and allow the creativity to flow freely, we don't judge ourselves, and we just work daily in the now state, doing the best that we can, and our creations naturally flourish. So you'd be like, what's the point? There's always got to be a point to a describer, isn't it? Emotional intelligence is a hell of a lot more important than IQ. We need to understand our feelings. We need to get in touch with our inner child, which is our creativity. And we need to objectively observe when something's not right. Soul of the machine. As a soul, we need to be objective. And as something starts to play out where we see that a trigger has reacted and we're going off, we got carried away, how do we pull ourselves back in? We learn to understand what's got us carried away, we bring ourselves back in, but we need to understand equilibrium. So we need to know how we are in balance, and then as we know how we are in balance, when we get carried away, we can pull ourselves back in, and we hit a point where it stops to trigger as much. And then we hit a point where the trigger disappears completely. And then once we start to deal with the minefield of all the triggers, and we start to remove all the triggers, we start to remove the barrier through the conditionings from our fucking childhood and everything else that happened, where we were like, I'm not good enough. We get rid of what is deemed, we are disposable. We start to trust ourselves, love ourselves, respect ourselves. The disposability falls apart. We recognize that I deserve the very best. So it's a deserving problem. So performance is based upon deserving. So let's get rid of all that type of shit. So it's like, I deserve, and because I deserve the best, I deserve to love myself. I deserve to not accept anything less than the best. So we need to learn to say this is fucking unacceptable. But the standard that we must hold has to be alignment with integrity. Doing the right things right. If there is any religion in this world, just do the right things right. Be a good parent. Be a good worker. Be a good reader. Be a good performer. Be everything that you want to be. You will earn your own self-respect. See, earn by doing the right things right. Learning from the mistakes and growing. We want to flourish. And when we flourish, there's no need for anyone to be jealous, because there's no need to fake it till we make it. Fuck. So if we want to take a look at this and come all the way through and come back and see, like, where is the real issue? There is a need to deal with the fear of failure. Winners and losers. The fear of failure is the inability to be able to receive growth. Intelligence grows through stress. We must put ourselves under pressure through our own ways in order to grow into something else that we didn't know what we could be. That fear of failure, winners have failed more time than they've won. But the win takes effort. That's the journey, that's the victory. So, we get victories up our sleeves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There may have been 100 failures to get the 5 victories. So we've got to stop looking at the victories. We need to recognize that, like, the joy's in the journey and the learning. But we need to recognize that those we see as winners took a lot of fucking loss to become a winner. So we've got to get good at failing. Fail fast. Fail fast to figure out how the fuck to not do it, so we can figure out quickly how to do the right things right. We do that, we kick the jealousy problem, and we can start to see our own growth begin to flourish again. Love is not about performance. Love is love. It's unconditional. If we can start to love unconditionally, we recognize that these issues that pop up in us, where we are looking at others, trying to validate our own worth over what they have and what we don't, is only coming because we will not face our fear of failure. I had to learn that, 15 years ago. So I can empathize, but like I've had to learn the hard way how to deal with that one. But if you really want to flourish to the next level, get good at failure. Learn to build a relationship with failure. Learn to understand its blessings. The quicker you fail, the quicker you win. And if you want to have a look at this conversation like at the tree, turn it upside down, start with get good at failure. Fuck, if you could listen to this in reverse, it would all make sense. But it's everything that's been spoken about starts with, we've got to be willing to lose. And it's only those that have the courage to be willing to lose that ultimately, in time, win. And how do they win? They become what they wanted to be, not what others told them they should be. There it is. I haven't got anything else to put with this other than get good at failure so that you can fight for the win.